Savage. Okay, Eric Holder was held in contempt today for refusing to hand over documents related to the smuggling of machine guns and other weapons to Mexico. So let's say you're a Democrat who listens to Michael Savage just to hear what the opposition has to say. How do you justify hiding documents? On what basis can you justify Eric Holder and the President of the United States hiding documents unless they got something to hide? There's no other way to describe this. They're hiding something. They've got something to hide. The guns were used to kill a Border Patrol agent, a wonderful Marine who was killed because he was forced to use beanbags instead of guns, again because of Holder and Napolitano and the President. He had to fire beanbags at drug cartel members, and then he was killed with a machine gun supplied by this government. Do you have any idea how big this is? If we lived in a sane nation, there'd be much more to this story in the media, but there isn't. I have a lawyer on the air, holding on the line. He's actually a friend of mine and my attorney. I respect Daniel very much. Politically, I think that we don't agree on many things. I don't really know. I don't even talk politics with him. Daniel Horowitz, welcome to the Savage Nation.
Hi, Michael. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Daniel, how would you describe yourself politically for my audience?
I think I'm in favor of the working person. If you work 40 hours a week, you're entitled to a health plan, fair pay, and you shouldn't have the government reach in your pocket and give it to people who want to sit around and watch TV and eat potato chips. That's
all right, so that's basically it without a label. So let's move on. You're a criminal defense attorney. You've seen the inside of many federal courtrooms. What justification would there be in this case for them to hide documents unless they're hiding something?
Well, you hit the nail right on the head. They are hiding something. This has been a cover-up since February 4th, 2011, when they wrote the first of many lies where they claimed that the guns weren't going to Mexico, that the Bush administration knew what was going on, so what they did was not so bad. You know, Michael, I went to your website today, and there's a great article. It's the article you have up there with the picture of Eric Holder. I think everybody should click on that because it refers to an article that has all the core documents. There's just lie after lie, and they only are lying because they're guilty of something very big.
Yeah, look, here we have a House Oversight Committee. Their job is to conduct oversight over various and sundry aspects of the government, right? And yet you have a member of the committee, Carolyn Maloney, Democrat, New York, saying she's outraged that an oversight committee would conduct oversight. I've never seen anything like that, Daniel.
Right, Michael, and the point that keeps bothering me is that Holder and the Justice Department lied to Congress about this. They covered it up, and then Congress caught them. And all of a sudden, now that the lies aren't working, they want to claim executive privilege as if they don't have to say anything. It's like somebody would testify in a criminal case, lie to the jury, and then when they get caught with the lie, say, I want to take the Fifth Amendment about everything. Once you open the door and you get caught in the lie, you know, the game's on. The game's on. Let's find what really happened.
Daniel, you know a lot of high-powered Democrats. Wouldn't they be in favor of seeing what those documents contain? I mean, to be fair about it.
Well, you know, it's so interesting. You know, Attorney Marty Garbus, who you and I have worked with, and we respect quite a bit, is a darling of the left wing. And he knows Eric Holder. He even likes him. But I know Marty would like to see what's there as well.
Are you sure?
I'm sure. Because
I hope you're not speaking out of turn, because no. Marty is a certifiable leftist of the highest order. I mean, you and I both know that I've argued with Marty about some of his representations and pretty vociferous.
You don't think he should represent Fidel Castro?
No, I don't think he should represent Chavez and Castro. No, I don't.
And yet, Chavez, I think he wouldn't represent Castro. I don't think he minds so much. It's interesting. But no, he wants to get to the bottom of it also. Now, he thinks ultimately Holder will come clean, you know, and will be clean if the truth was known. Marty's a big First Amendment guy. He's a Democrat who believes that the truth should come out. Where you and he may differ is that his truth is that the left wing is right, and your truth is that they're insane.
Well, let's forget who's insane. We know that liberalism is largely peopled by mentally disordered people who are on Prozac. But aside from that, Dan, truthfully, come on, are there any liberals who would argue that the president has a right to invoke executive privilege because there are documents that would make him look bad? That's not the purpose of executive privilege, is it?
Well, when you invoke a privilege, what you're basically saying is let the courts decide. And it's human nature when you're under the gun to invoke privilege and at least put up a barrier and delay. So I get it. I mean, executive privilege exists so that partisan politics don't sort of get into the bedroom of the executive branch. There has to be some privacy in communications. I get that. But in this case, they opened the door, they lied to Congress, and now when they got caught, they don't want Congress to see what really went on. And that's what bothers me the most about this assertion of executive privilege. Had they done it at the beginning, turned the documents over to a fair and neutral judge, if there are any, and the judge would say, well, some of these are relevant to what Congress wants to know, some of these are not, and they have to do with how Holder and Obama talked to each other, and segregated things out. That would have been okay. But now it's a cover-up, and it's a big difference between using a privilege legitimately and using it as part of a cover-up. That's where I'm angry at them.
All right. Now, you used the key word, Daniel Horowitz. You said cover-up. That set off memory bells in my head of Watergate and a giant cover-up that led to the resignation of President Nixon. Right. Do you think this case is as big a case as Watergate?
Michael, it's like you've been saying, we don't know, but they would not be acting the way they're acting if they didn't have something to hide, right?
Well, that's what I think.
That's what I keep hearing you say.
To me, all it's going to do is make even good liberals say, what are they hiding? I mean, look, Dan, let's make believe we're all sitting in a living room. What are they hiding?
They're hiding. I mean, you're right.
What are they hiding?
I mean, what, are they just saying we want privilege, we don't want to tell you what's there? Because if we did tell you, you'd know that we're good guys, we're totally honest, and we didn't do anything wrong? That's not what's going on.
Well, I'll tell you what. Daniel, I just got a flash that set me off that I'm going to throw out here that no one's ever thought of. You know I can think around the corner sometimes, right?
Yes.
You know what I think they're doing here? I think they're playing a game with the Republican committee. What they're going to do is actually release those documents, and it's going to make them look good. After all of the hue and cry, they're going to embarrass the Republicans. Is that a possibility?
Well, Michael, it's a good possibility, and that's the type of chess master thinking. It has people like me, and because remember, I listened to your show long before we became friends. That's why we listen to you. Yes, hearing what you say, it could be what they're planning, or worse, they're buying time so that they can destroy documents and cover up their wrongdoing. That's the other possibility.
Well, let me go to my reverse paranoid idea, okay? Remember what happened with the birth certificate allegation? Remember? It went on for years and years and years. Then Trump came out with the allegation, and virtually within days, Obama produces a document which is allegedly the birth certificate, which allegedly put it to rest, which embarrassed the birthers, right?
I guess they were embarrassed, yes.
No, there's still a huge industry that says he's not an American citizen, but it more or less took the steam out of the opposition, did it not?
Okay, I'm with you on that, yes.
All right, so now follow the logic. They're actually playing the Republicans who are running after them for these documents, and they're saying, we're not going to give them to you. Now, all of a sudden, the big hue and cry goes on for another few weeks, and then Holder and he either make up new documents. I mean, after all, couldn't they forge documents which make them look good?
Oh, I think they can and will forge documents, and I think they'll particularly destroy documents, and they need to buy time, because when you destroy documents, you have to figure out where every single one went and retrieve it covertly, and that's why cover-ups take time. So I think they are covering it up one way or the other. Michael, what really bothers me, I have to say this entire operation makes no sense. We already know who the drug dealers are in Mexico. We know who has the guns. We know everything this operation would tell us. The exact line of distribution from A to Z is really not very important. So I don't understand the real purpose of this operation in the first place. I really don't.
Oh, no, Dan, I described it in Trickle-Down Tyranny, which I gave you a copy of, but you're going to fail the exam, the final exam, because on page 245 I explained it. I'm going to read it in one paragraph. They wanted to confirm their bias against the Second Amendment to demonstrate that gun ownership is dangerous, and the gun shops in Arizona were the ones selling the weapons to Mexico, and they needed to be shut down. So the object here was to weaken the Second Amendment by going after the gun stores in Arizona.
All right, now I'm going to tell you something that's not privilege. I just ran it through my head, but it does come from a major criminal case that I have right here in Northern California. The methamphetamine trade, a lot of the drugs come from Mexico to the United States where they're sold. A good deal of the payment for those drugs is not in cash, but in guns, which are shipped to Mexico. So this
my God!
So this whole attempt to frame the gun dealers in Arizona in a bad light at page 245 of your book, it's a conspiracy against them because it's not nearly the correct picture. What I just told you comes from DEA interrogations and from a mass of materials that I have. That's a very major source.
This gets worse by the minute, Dan, and I'm sure my audience is hanging on every word because the last you were on my show is when that wonderful organization, Council on American Islamic Relations, which is a joke unto itself, just the name itself is enough to make you choke, sued me and you defended me. Remember that case?
I remember that, and I also know on your website you had an article where recently the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas lobbed bombs into Israel.
Yes.
The Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood ordered Hamas to do it. And guess what? That is Hamas. They're tied to Hamas. They raise money for Hamas. So sure,
this administration has gone soft on CAIR, haven't they? They use CAIR as advisors.
Oh, yeah. This administration is, in my opinion, they were supported by CAIR. During the election, CAIR put out an election booklet that, in a very subtle way, supported pro-Hamas candidates. And Obama, in their view anyway, was more pro-Hamas than John McCain or anyone else.
Dan Horowitz, another question. There's a hue and cry right now amongst the politically, let us say, aware conservatives in the United States of America, which is a very small minority of people in this country. You know the vast majority don't know anything about this and will remain dumb because the media has gone on to the weather on the East Coast rather than this. Do you think this is going to get bigger or smaller?
Well, you see, for me, I can only judge myself, and I am more liberal than you by far. And yet I'm angry, and you can tell I'm angry. I think this is going to get big because even though there's a chance they'll succeed in their cover-up and destroying documents and try to embarrass the Republicans in Congress, I don't think so. I think there is direct involvement of the Obama administration in covering this up with Holder to avoid embarrassment. This is a very narcissistic president. He cares more about his image than what's good for the United States. And I think he was part of the cover-up. I think it's a type of Watergate. My concern, Michael, is that with Watergate, we were able to or just wanted to destroy Nixon when we found out his role. Here, Obama could be just as guilty on something much more serious because a brave man, as you pointed out, was murdered because of this operation. And yet I think it'll just fall off his back like water off a duck.
Why? Because of this of the spineless media? I mean, is that the reason they're just going to brush it aside?
I think that's part of it, and I'm afraid that the public is not angry enough and not and cowed and afraid. I mean, your audience is very powerful and very strong, but how many people do you have? Listen to 10 million people. This is a country. They've got people watching CNN. They got 10 million cowards watching CNN who believe anything that Anderson Cooper says. So I'm concerned. And
you said something to me on the phone, Dan. Something on the phone about our generation. You're a little younger than I am, but you're still, you're over 50. You said that we have a certain worldview that once we're gone, virtually, you were talking about Obama and that generation having virtually no ethics whatsoever. Isn't that what you're implying?
I think so, Michael. I mean, you came and I came from a generation where Hitler had just been defeated by people somewhat older than us. They gave up their lives, their youth, their entire 5, 6, 7 years of the fighting against the Germans, and they cared about something. These young kids care about whether they have a good iPad or an iPod, and what the latest techno boring music does for them with girls or boys. How are they going to get upset when by a policy that the Justice Department puts into place? They don't care.
So it doesn't matter. It has no meaning to people who are simply watching which slut in Hollywood ripped which dress on Sunset Boulevard in an ecstasy stupor.
Yeah, I couldn't. I wish I could talk like you, but yes, that's what I mean.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to be so graphically blunt. Daniel Daniel Horowitz, as usual, an amazing interchange with you. I'm sure my audience is scintillated. Maybe we'll have you back tomorrow when the audience has a chance to think about it and you could answer some questions.
Good, and I'd love to hear what they have to say when they call in today also. Thanks.
Wait till you hear this. The minute we come back, thanks, Daniel Horowitz. We'll be right back on the Savage Nation. Savage.